Latest news update today, February 21, 2023. Poor analysts claim that the city of BMO will serve as a stepping stone for the complete occupation of Ukrainian territory, which is why Putin attaches great importance to the city of BMO after the loss of Sala. Ukrainian leaders, Zelensky, said that they will fight for the city of BMO until the end, and BMU is the stronghold of. The Ukrainian army continues to prevent the invading Russian forces with the defense lines it has established in the city of Bakhmut. When the Russian army failed to cross the defense line formed by the Ukrainian army, it started to intensify airstrikes again. The resistance of the Ukrainian army in this region caused the Russian forces to inflict huge casualties. In the past days, the Russian army activated Russian fighter jets to capture the city of Pak. The Russian Air Force team wanted to organize an attack on the city of Badu with an Su-25 fighter jet, but this attack was prevented by Ukrainian forces. It is said that this fighter jet was sent to destroy the Ukrainian air defense systems in Badu. Then Ukrainian forces spotted the Russian Su-25 fighter jet. They targeted it with a portable anti-aircraft missile system. When Ukrainian soldiers fired the fighter jet killed fire and crashed to the ground. Ukrainian commanders confirmed that the Ukrainian army shot down the fighter jet. Russian leader Putin is sending Wagner mercenaries to this region in order to ensure his supremacy. And backwards, a founding member of the Wagner Company recruited thousands of Russian prisoners into the Wagner army in recent months and led them to war Ukraine. According to the contract signed by Russian prisoners with Wagner, prisoners who agreed to fight in Ukraine for 6 months will be freed. However, according to Andrei Veda, a former Wagner mercenary commander who managed to escape from the front, soldiers fighting in Ukraine are not allowed to leave Ukraine even though their contract has expired. Viv, a former Wagner commander, has already said that he's not allowed to leave Ukraine even though he served as a commander and his contract has expired. This leads us to believe that the Evgeny Prigozhin may treat the new prisoners he has recruited into Wagner in the same. As they know, Wagner soldiers also played a major role in the occupation of the city of Sor. Wagner soldiers have now been deployed in the city of Fout. Putin wanted to send more soldiers, armored vehicles, and tanks to capture Bagu. However, the Ukrainian army blew up the bridge used by the Russian army. In order to prevent this Russian shipment, a local news website in the Donetsk region reporter, Ukrainian troops blew up the bridge on Monday, dealing a blow to Russian forces. Footage of the bridge blown up by the Ukrainian army was reportedly broadcast on Eastern Edition, a local news Telegram channel. This destroyed bridge is located between Bakhmut and Koka. The Russian army was using this bridge to support the Russian soldiers sent to the Bakhmut. However, with this operation of the Ukrainian army, the shipments sent by the Russian forces were preempted. The Donetsk Regional Administration stated that Russian reconnaissance groups started arriving at the bridge, and that they were trying to provide intelligence about the areas where the Ukrainian army was deployed, which is why the bridge was blown up earlier. Fighting in the back. Matri is currently quiet. The Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of the Krasnara area north of BMU, but the Ukrainian officials denied this. The Ukrainian army has long been putting up strong resistance against Russian forces on the Bakhmuts. Front war analysts say the Ukrainian army has no intention of leaving BMU. As the anniversary of the February 24 invasion approaches, the Kremlin is exerting considerable effort to seize the Bakhmut. The Russian army wants to achieve a decisive victory in Bakhmut before the arrival of new weapons, tanks, and ammunition for the Ukrainian army from the allied countries of Ukraine. For this reason, Russian forces have launched a new offensive along the Ukrainian army's defense line in Und. While Kremlin officials have repeatedly claimed that they have achieved great successes on the Bakhmut front, and the Russian army is advancing rapidly, Wagner founder Organic Prigozhin, who has many soldiers in the region, disagrees. Prigozhin, known as one of Putin's closest friends, said that Dev war is far from over and that Bagu will not be captured anytime soon. Prigozhin said that there was a great resistance in Bagu and they will not celebrate anytime soon, stating that the Ukrainian army has become more active over time and has gained more equipment resource. Prigozhin spoke very negatively about the UNFront. White House spokesperson John Kirby stated that Russian forces have increased the offensive against Und and started to move towards the areas north and south of Und Sergeyeva. A military spokesman for EU Ukraine's Eastern Command said that the Russian army rely more on one power than armor vehicle. It is said that the Russian forces are afraid of destroying Russian tanks and armored vehicles with the defense systems used by the Ukrainian army, so they are trying to engage in close combat by forming small teams. Putin seems to not want to lose any more tanks and armored vehicles as the Russian army has suffered a lot of casualties on Ukrainian soil. The Russian military offensive against backwards begun in. Russian leader Putin is mobilizing almost all means at its disposal to capture the city of. The BMA front has become one of the bloodiest areas of the war in Ukraine. Images shared on social media platforms show that the Russian army has lost thousands of Russian soldiers in the city and on the front line. Ukrainian soldiers showed once again the extent of Russian casualties by filling cemeteries in southern Russia with reconnaissance drones. Another event that left a question mark was the statements made by Evgeny Prigozhin, and while Kremlin officials talked about their successes, And so leather, they never mentioned the Wagner mercenaries. It is said that Evgeny Prigozhin was angered by the fact that Russian officials said that Chan and Russian soldiers played a big role in the capture of the city of Soto, but never mentioned the Wagner Merc. Prigozhin also made a statement after these statements made by Russian officials. Prigozhin stated that the city of Soor was entirely composed of Wagner soldiers and that this city was captured by Wagner soldiers. The fact that Russian officials and Prigozhin made separate statements made it possible to think that there were some problems pre-end. While Russian officials said that they made rapid progress in the city of Bagman and captured some areas, Prigozhin made a statement denying these claims, which surprised everyone. Prigozhin, who is a close friend of Putin, stated that the capture of the city of Bagman would not be possible in the near future, further exacerbating the allegations of a problem between him and. It seems that the prolongation of the war and the huge losses are causing some problems within the Kremlin. Next news. The air defense systems that Russian President Vladimir Putin priced have been destroyed on Ukrainian territory during the successive operations of the Ukrainian army against occupying Russian forces. A large number of Russian soldiers lost their lives, while the air defense systems, the most valuable treasure of the Russian army, were deconstructed. The strength of the Russian army, which made very rapid progress on Ukrainian territory as the first months of the war, is deflated. Putin, who managed to occupy the four most important regions on the territory of Ukraine, led the Ukrainian citizens living here to leave their homes. A large number of Ukrainian citizens have left their homes, while some have been enforced to live in this region. Putin won Harrison and new credence by holding an illegal referendum to formalize his dominance in this occupied regions. A large number of Ukrainian citizens refused to participate in this referendum of Putin. On top of these, Russian soldiers pressured Ukrainian citizens to go to their homes and how independent can the words of Ukrainian citizens force it toward at gunpoint be with the illegal referendum results? These four regions belonging to Ukraine were an exit by Putin. However, no state leader recognized this an action by Putin. While the United States and the West do not recognize this action by Putin, he announced that they do not recognize this annexation decision in Turkey, which is known as a good relationship with Russia. Vladimir Putin's nerves word troll, the strength over these statements of wean countries. After Ukrainian leaders, Zelensky stated that these occupied territories would be retaken and placed under Ukrainian administration. In a short time, Putin wanted to take measures. The Russian leader has started transferring air defense systems from Russia to the territory of Ukraine, organizing a large number of military shipments. Putin wanted to prevent the Ukrainian army's attacks on these regions by deploying a large number of air defense systems to these regions that he occupied, but against Putin's air defense systems. The Ukrainian army also had unmanned combat aircraft. It's known that the Ukrainian army has carried out newer operations against Russian forces using unmanned combat aircraft since the beginning of the war. The Ukrainian army has greatly increased its air operations, thanks to the modernizing weapons. The Ukrainian army has started carrying out airstrikes against the air defense systems that Putin has placed in these occupied areas. The Berer TB2 unmanned combat aircraft managed to award entering the radar of the Russian army's air defense systems because it can provide flights at high altitude. The Ukrainian army, they managed to destroy the air defense systems of the invading Russian forces with a large number of kamikaze UAVs. The main reason why the Ukrainian army destroyed these air defense systems was to prepare the basis for the airstrikes that it would organize later, thanks to the HIMARS missile provided by the United States to Ukraine. The Ukrainian army, which could organize air operations even within the borders of Russia, could easily launch airstrikes on the occupied territories. In particular, the Ukrainian army, which is conducting airstrikes against Russian troops in Bakhmut, Sadar, located in the Donor region, is not giving passage to Russian forces there. The Russian army, on the other hand, has taken action to neutralize the Ukrainian army's air defense system in Bakhmut. Russian forces wanted to carry out an airstrike on Ba with the Russian Su-25 fighter jet, but this attack was blocked by Ukrainian soldiers. It was announced by the Ukrainian authorities that the Su-25 plane shut down by Ukrainian soldiers caught fire and crashed to the ground. According to statements by Ukrainian officials, the Russian plane was shut down with a portable anti-aircraft missile. In addition, according to the allegations, the Ukrainian army is also said to have shut down a Russian Mi-8 combat helicopter on this front. War analysts say that recently, along with the operations organized by the Ukrainian army, the occupying Russian forces are losing close to 1,000 soldiers every day in Ukraine. The fact that the Russian army is losing soldiers so quickly is not welcome in the Kremlin at all. According to the latest data, the Russian army's troop losers in Ukraine have 145,000 were analysis. Think there is another reason why the Russian military is intensifying attacks in this region. Although Wagner leader Yevgen wants to seize the city of Soledar and Bakhmut because of his personal ambitions, Putin's main goal here is allegedly different. Putin's main goal is to prepare the ground for the Great Russian Offensive, which is set to begin in Having completely captured the series of Bar, Putin is expected to deploy a large number of troops to these areas. Russian leader Putin has recently lost a large number of air defense systems thanks to the military equipment sent by the allied countries of Ukraine to Ukraine. The sub of the dominance of the aerospace in Ukraine is now in. Although the Russian army has increased its airstrikes against Ukraine, these attacks are being successfully prevented thanks to the air defense system used by the Ukrainian army. The Russian military carried 31 missile strikes and 12 airstrikes against Bakhmut, a Ukrainian General Staff Chef said in a statement. He also reported that Russian military also tried to attack Ukrainian positions with Shahed-136 Kamika unmanned combat aircraft sent by Iran to Russia, but the Ukrainian defense forces prevented all of these attacks. The war in Ukraine has now been replaced by modern military technology instead of soldiers. Many war analysts say that Russia is still acting with an outdated war strategy, dating back to the Second World War, and therefore it was failed to achieve the desired success on Ukrainian territory and has suffered newer losses. As for Ukrainian army, we can say that with the support of the United States and Western countries, there is no trace of the Ukrainian army in the first months of the Ukrainian army is now able to easily respond to the attacks of Russian forces due to the fact that it has extremely modern military equipment. It's taught that the invading Russian forces will suffer even greater losses with the tanks that will be sent to Ukraine. Russian leader Putin is very uncomfortable with the support of the United States and Western countries for Ukraine. Putin never hesitates to trade Western countries by using the energy sources he has at his disposal. Putin, who cut off the flow of natural gas to some European countries in the middle of the war, wanted to give a message to Western countries with his move. However, Western leaders did not give in to Putin's threats and continue to support Ukraine. The most surprising event during the war was Turkey's support for Ukraine. As it is known, Russian President Putin and Turkish President Erdogan have a very good relationship. However, despite this, President Erdogan continues to send this unmanned combat aircraft to Ukraine while saying that by RAR and manned combat aircraft will not be sent to Russia.